What's up, my Beardos and Weirdos? Thank you again for coming to check out another video. This one is going to be another dive into r/EntitledParents, the super crazy popular video series that everyone keeps coming back for. So yeah, clearly since you keep watching these, I'm just going to have to keep making them. Alright, we have two stories to go through today. One about trying to force a worker to date someone's daughter. The next story is about an entitled mom, some books, and Satanism. Also, thanks so much for subscribing, you guys. That is amazing. I'll talk a bit more about that at the end, but yeah, thanks. Alright, let's dive right on into it. You will date my daughter or I'll get you fired. So for some context, I'm a 17-year-old male and I work at a segway tour company. It's actually really fun. I get to ride segways around the city and talk to people and get paid to do it. Plus, the tipping isn't bad. So anyway, there was a tour booked a couple of days ago, and I came in about 20 minutes early to answer emails and get everything ready. The group shows up, mother and daughter, and that's when things get interesting. I'm not going to insult your intelligence by telling you what EP and ME stand for, but D equals daughter and FBI equals Federal Bureau of Investigation. Just some useful info. Clever. EP and D come in and I check them in. Alright, I have some waivers for you to sign. D, how old are you?
16.
Oh, okay. Then you don't need to sign a waiver. I ask this because if kids are younger than 18, their parents sign the waivers for them, but EP only heard me say the first part, and not when I said D didn't need to sign a waiver, so she thought I was just asking her daughter how old she was. This is probably what started it all. We go on the tour, and while I'm giving my spiel, EP keeps interrupting me and telling me stuff about D and find if we are compatible. Me. And so, this non-profit organization opened in...
Are you in college?
No, I'm a junior in high school. I'm usually pretty free with info about myself on tours because it helps keep people relaxed and initiates conversation during lulls in the tour. Plus, it helps with tipping.
Oh, D is also a junior. She's an artist.
Stuff like this keeps happening through the tour, and every time D gets redder and redder. My mom does this too, where she tells random mall attendants about me, so I know what D is going through and I feel her pain. At the end of the tour, I tell the two of them they have 15 minutes to go around the town and they can meet me back at the Segway place. I get back and start setting things up for their return. They roll in, pardon the pun, and I take their Segways to start charging them.
So, what do you think of my daughter?
Pardon me, what?
I saw you checking her out during the tour, so are you gonna ask her out?
Mom, stop. Ma'am, I recently got out of a relationship, and I'm not really looking for anything right now.
What?
Huh?
Is my daughter not good enough for you?
No, that's not it. I just said that I got out of a relation...
You are going to date my daughter, and that's final!
You can't tell me what to do. I'm not your kid, and if I don't want to date your daughter, I don't have to. Besides, you haven't even asked her if she wants to date me.
Yeah, I don't want to date him.
See?
I'm gonna call your boss and tell him about your terrible customer service. You're never gonna work in
City name.
again.
Me? Pulling out phone. Alright, you want to call him and explain this situation? How you're trying to force me to date your daughter and get me fired for saying no? Then I guess the absurdity of the situation finally sunk in, and her face transitioned from pure rage to slight confusion.
Oh, wait, maybe I don't want to...
No, let's call him. I start to go through my contacts and press my boss's name. Let's have this conversation.
I don't think that's a good idea.
Phone starts ringing.
D, let's go.
EP runs to the door. D turns to me and says, I'm sorry, and then follows her mom. I hang up the phone before my boss answers and start cleaning the segways. I have some more stories from my work. Y'all tell me if you want to hear more. Yeah. I want to hear more about the segways. I want to hear about the wipeouts. I want to hear if anyone goes over the guardrails and ends up in the ocean. I have so many questions. Oh my gosh. So, I mean, good on you for knowing your boundaries and saying, what is and what is not appropriate to the workplace for you. OP, solid. Good story. I'm glad you made it alive. Segway tours. I've never tried a Segway. Hit up the chat below if you have any feelings about Segways, positive or negative. I've seen those single wheel Segways. Those I find pretty intriguing, actually. Entitled mom tries to deny her son his dying wish and tries to kill him because the books I got for him are satanic. Some backstory. I'm in a D&D group with a couple of friends from nearby, and one of the members of the group was a kid who is about 15 years old. He's a really sweet kid. likes helping others out, and he's a big fan of Dungeons and Dragons. He also has cancer in both of his lungs. He's from a religious family that basically forces him to act pure while he's in their sight. The mom is WBC level rabid, while the dad is just a sensible person who tries to get him to be a good kid. When he's out of sight of his parents, he just does normal teen stuff. Because of his mom, the only books he's allowed to read, the only books he's allowed to own were Christian books and Bibles. He joined our group mainly as an escape of his home life and his mom. A couple of weeks ago, the cancer in his lungs started to get to him, so he was taken to a hospital by his parents. He contacted me about this a day after he was taken to the hospital, stating that he wanted a monster manual as his last wish, stating that he was tired of reading the same things. I bought him the book from the Barnes & Noble, but considering that he's a dying teen, I got him Volo's Guide to Monsters and Mordenkainen's Tome of Foes stacked on top of that. The next day, which was his birthday, he was still in the hospital, so I brought him the books as a gift. After he blew out the candles, we had cake, and he started opening gifts. Mine was the first to be opened. Seeing what they were, he immediately got this humongous grin on his face and hugged me. Meanwhile, his mom stared down at the books with a look of pure disgust, with the husband staring at her with this wary look in his eyes. She picks up one of the books and relights one of the religious candles and holds the damn book over it to try and set it on fire. I managed to stop her and demand, "What the fuse are you doing? He asked me to get those books for him and I'm not going to let you take them away." His mom simply stared me down and said something along the lines of the books being sinful, satanic, and full of evil that her son had no business with. I retort and say that her son can read what he wants and that she shouldn't have to force him to be Christian. She starts getting red in the face and yelling at me about essentially forcing children to believe in God from a young age. I state that I'm a Baptist, which I actually am, and say that faith in God is a matter between God and the individual. She turns red all over and actively starts to try and destroy the books, with me, my friend, and her husband trying to stop her. At one point I shouted, "Would God want you to do this? To try and restrict your dying son's freedom of expression?" Right in her face. This just sets her fuse in a blaze. She tosses the books aside and starts trying to strangle her son, and her husband calls security immediately when she does this. Security get there within about a minute or two of us trying to pry EM off her son and drag her away, with her shouting that we're all catamites to the devil. Both her husband and my friend charge her with child abuse, assault, and attempted murder. Trial's still going, and I'll try to update this post as the trial goes on. Edit number 4. Trial was almost a disaster. Me, him, and her husband all prosecuted against her. The moment she saw us, she tried to tackle us, shouting something about divine retribution, but the officers restrained her. During the whole thing, she kept pinning the blame on me and him, calling us corrupted by sin. Needless to say, she was pronounced guilty of all 3 charges that I mentioned earlier. The moment she heard this, she went apeshiz and tried to attack the judge, but officers tasered her to the floor. Now she'll be serving 20 years for the other 3 charges, with 10 more on top of assaulting a court official. Thank you all for the support you guys gave us. Oh, that is hard to read. Gosh, I mean, not only would it be very difficult to grow up in a household that's so restrictive that you're not allowed to explore outside knowledge. I mean, the only reason these parents know that book A or book B are not desirable over book C is that they have some experience to be able to know that. And without allowing their son to gain some experience and some perspective of why book A and book B are not desirable, of course their son is going to want to explore and see the world and figure things out for himself. Only with providing context and explaining things would you be able to understand why one thing for your religion is good and one thing is not. Now that we know that he is dying, you should be doing anything and everything he wants. If he wants to go skydiving, take him to do that. If he wants to read 100 books, let him do that. Let him see the world while he still can with the days that he has left. I don't know. Good story. Solid story. Thanks for posting this, OP. Thank you to everyone who's joined us for this video today. That was a weird couple of stories. I wanted to say thank you so much to everyone who's been subscribing over the last couple days. I fully expected to say a big thank you to the first 300 people who subscribed, but the last time I checked the numbers, we almost hit 400, and... So I'm not sure if I should just say thank you to all the 300 people who subscribed, or I should say thank you to all the 370 plus people who subscribed to the channel. But thank you so much for dropping by. If you have a request for what kind of video you'd like to see next, let me know in the comments below. Also, let me know what you think of these stories in general. I'm curious what you guys like, what you dislike. yeah, I comment back to every single person who comments on these videos unless I don't get a chance to, so if you leave me a comment below, there's a really good chance you're going to get in touch with me. Alright, my Beardos and Weirdos, I'll see you in the next video, where we take it one topic at a time.